my beautiful friends, my name is Elena. Welcome back to the channel. If you ever wanted to make your own candles from scratch, all the way from picking the right ingredients to creating your very first masterpiece, this video is for you. Today I'm sharing a full candle making guide from A to Z. You'll learn everything you need to get started, whether you're making candles just for yourself, to give to your loved ones, or even to start your own candle business. I'm also going to reveal the exact formula I use for my own candles. This is such an important step because knowing how to properly calculate your wax and fragrance oil is the key to making a great performing candle. We'll also make a candle together and I'll walk you through every step so it's easier for you to understand the whole process. You'll learn how to figure out exactly how much wax and fragrance oil goes into any jar you choose to work with, and I'll also show you how to test your candles, what to look for during testing, and share some extra tips along the way. So let's get started. Let's start with all the supplies you'll need for making candles. Your first step is deciding on the right candle container. You need to decide whether you want to invest in more expensive containers for a luxury look or go with something simple and affordable like tins or amber jars. But please never use random containers not made for candles. If they can't handle high temperatures, they can crack or even cause a fire, and we definitely don't want that. When I first started, I used 10 containers because they were affordable and easy to work with. Just keep in mind that tins can get very hot, so you'll need to make sure to use the right formula so the candle doesn't burn too hot. Later, I added amber jars. These are beautiful, cozy, and I'm really obsessed with them, and they're safer since glass holds up much better under heat. After about a year in my candle business, I wanted something more high-end, so I started using stoneware caps. They're originally made for coffee, but I love the idea of a 2-in-1 candle, and after the candle is finished, the cup can be reused forever for tea, coffee, makeup brushes, pens, or just as decor. It's a sustainable and durable option that makes the candle feel more special. So it's all up to your preferences and your budget. The most important rule, always buy containers from candle supply shops, not random stores. That way you know they're safe for candle making. Just want to interrupt you a little bit and show you that I have a digital products on my Etsy shop for all candle makers. I have a bunch of designs for wax melts, labels, and candle care cards, as well as wax melt scare cards. These templates are so easy to use with your free Canva account. Also, if you're making a wax melt and you're looking for mock-ups, I have a lot of mock-ups to choose from, and I want to provide you with a 20% off discount, so you can check my Etsy shop and the discount in the description down below. Alright, now let's talk about wax choices. I can't cover every single type of wax, but here's my experience with a few. Parasoy is a soy and paraffin blend, great for beginners, affordable and easy to work with, but since it has paraffin, it's not 100% natural. We have mineral waxes. I really don't recommend them because they're tricky to use, have weak scent throw, and are not very popular. Coconut wax or soy coconut blends. My top choice is natural smooth, gives excellent hot and cold throw, and usually doesn't crack or form sinkholes. The downside is that it burns faster, about 10 hours less than Parasoy. That's from my experience, and also you need to pour at a very low temperature, which means waiting longer for the wax to cool before pouring. And last, we have 100% natural soy wax. I started with this one because it's natural, but it wasn't for me. It has a weaker scent throw, tops are often uneven, sinkholes are common, and you'll need to constantly use a heat gun to fix the tops and poke relief holes to prevent tunneling. Right now I'm using Eco Cocoa container wax. It's a pure coconut wax. If you can find a soy coconut blend, I think that's the perfect balance, natural, long-lasting, and beginner-friendly. So my recommendations are: start with Parasoy if you want something easy and affordable. Try coconut or soy coconut blends if you're going for natural and luxurious, and be careful with 100% soy because it takes a lot of extra work. Now let's talk about wicks. I haven't tested every type out there, but I do have some experience with Eco series, TCR, Wood Wicks, and CDN series. Out of all of them, I personally think the CDN series is the best choice for natural waxes like soy, parasoy, and coconut. They don't burn too hot when you're using the right formula, and they don't mushroom, which makes them really reliable. That's why I recommend starting with CDN wicks. And now you may be asking, how do you choose the right wick size for your candle container? The truth is, there's no single right answer. You'll often find recommendations on your supplier's website, and those can give you a good starting point. But honestly, the only way to know what works for your candle is through burn testing. For example, if you're interested in working with the CDN series wicks, you may see charts online that suggest certain wick sizes for different container diameters. That's helpful for reference, but remember, you're using your own wax blend, your own fragrance oils, and sometimes those recommendations just won't apply. So think of it as a guide, not a rule. Now a couple of words about wood wicks. They're definitely cozy with that cracking sound, and they look so luxurious in a candle. But to be honest, they're really difficult to work with. I tried so many times, and even when using the same wick, each candle burned differently. For me, that makes them unsustainable. I'd constantly be worried about how the candle will perform for my customers. So I decided to set them aside for now and maybe revisit them in the future when I feel ready. And just to clarify, I wasn't using cheap wood wicks from AliExpress or Amazon. I actually bought high quality, pricey ones from a big candle company, if you know Makisi, and still I never had a completely perfect burn with them. That's why for me, they were just too hard to work with. So when it comes to choosing fragrance oils for your candles, the most important thing is don't try to save money here. Fragrance oils need to be really high quality and made especially for candle making. Always buy them from candle supplies websites because they'll give you all the right information, like how much you can safely use in your candles. But if your candle supplier doesn't provide usage information, you can start with about 6% of fragrance load and then test going up to 10 or even 12, as long as your wax can actually hold that amount. I also recommend going for phthalate-free fragrance oils. They're less harmful, less toxic, and just better for your customers to breathe in. Now about essential oils. I honestly don't recommend making candles with them because first, they're super expensive, and second, if you add them at the wrong temperature, they just burn off and you lose the scent completely. Essential oils need really low temps, and it's really tricky in candles. But if you still want that touch of essential oils, look for fragrance oils that are infused with essential oils. I personally use this and I love them so much. They're more expensive than regular oils, but they feel more luxurious and high quality. And honestly, you can really tell in the air. The smell just hits differently. And of course, let's not forget all the other supplies you'll need to make candles. You'll definitely need a thermometer because candle making is all about working with the right temperatures, a pouring pitcher, and a good scale to measure your wax. If you want to be extra accurate with your fragrance oils, I recommend a gram scale too. You'll also need wick stickers, a wick holder to keep your wick centered, and some kind of wick setting tools. You can make one yourself with something simple like a pen, or invest in custom holders made for your jar size. To measure your fragrance oil, you'll need a small container, something like a paper cup or a silicone measuring cup. Another tool I highly recommend investing in is a good heat gun. It's super useful. You can smooth out the tops of your candles if you need, heat your pouring pitcher if you're working with high temperature waxes, and even use it for cleaning purposes. Once you have one, you'll find yourself reaching for it all the time. And by the way, I have all the links for supplies that you need for candle making in the description down below, so you can check. Let's talk about the most interesting part of this video, the formula for candle making. But before I share it, you may be wondering, how do I know how much wax and fragrance oil will actually fit into my jar? There are two ways to find out. The first one, not really my favorite, is to simply melt your wax and pour it into the jar while it's on the scale that's been zeroed out. That way you'll know exactly how much wax fits inside. The second option, and the one I recommend, is using water to measure. Just keep in mind wax is heavier than water, so you can't just fill your jar with the water and assume that's the correct wax weight. In candle making, we always measure in grams, so remember that. Here's a simple formula. Take the weight of your water in your container and multiply it by 0.86. That gives you the accurate weight of wax your container can hold. Super easy and quick. This formula is so useful whenever you're buying candle jars and want to know how much wax fits inside. Now let's move on to the most important formula you'll ever need in candle making. Honestly, write this one down on a sticky note and keep it near your workspace. Here's how it goes. C is your wax weight, A, fragrance oil, and B, your net weight. So it's wax plus fragrance oil together. So wax plus fragrance oil equals your net weight. Let's go through an example with one of my candles. My tin candle has a net weight of 170 grams. Net weight means the wax plus the fragrance oil together, not including the jar, just what's inside. So now I need to know how much wax and how much fragrance oil I need to get that 170 grams. Here's the calculation. Take 170 grams, the net weight, and divide it by 108% because I'm using 8% of fragrance oil. That gives me 157 grams of wax. Now to find out how much fragrance oil I need, I just subtract 170 grams, it's a net weight, minus 157 grams of wax, and we get 13 grams of fragrance oil. Let's check 157 grams of wax plus 13 grams of fragrance oil, 170 grams net weight, and that's perfect. Another way to double check your percentage is to take your fragrance oil weight and divide it by the wax weight. So 13 dividing by 157, and it's 8%. That confirms everything is correct. So remember, this is the only formula you need to calculate your wax and fragrance oil amounts accurately every single time. Now I want to show you step by step how I usually make my candles. The first step is very important. Always prep your notes. Write down all the details of your candle, the fragrance oil name, the fragrance load, the wick you use. I usually stick this note as a label on my candle so I can track everything later. Next, I prep my jar. To remove any dust, I use rubbing alcohol spray and a paper towel. This also helps the wick sticker stick better to the bottom. Then I attach my wick using a wick sticker. Now to center the wick, you need a setting tool. I actually have a customized wick setting tool that was made especially for my 7-ounce amber jars. But this is something more for advanced candle makers, so if you're just starting out, you don't need to worry about it. You can simply use a pen or another straight tool to find the center. With smaller jars, it's even easier. After that, I place a wick holder across the top on the jar to keep the wick in place while the wax sets. You can find wick holders in any candle supply store. I got mine from Amazon. For measuring wax, I use my regular kitchen scale. To melt the wax, you have two options. If you have electric cooktop, you can place your pouring pitcher directly on it. Or you can use the double boiler method. Fill the small pan with water and place your pouring pitcher inside the pan. The water creates a buffer so the wax doesn't overheat. It melts more gently this way. For fragrance oil, I measure it with my gram scale. You can pour it into a paper cup or a silicone measuring cup like mine. And here's a little life hack. To avoid spills, pour the fragrance oil slowly along the bamboo stick. It guides the oil and keeps it from splashing everywhere. When the wax is fully melted, I wait until it cools down to about 80 degrees, it's about 176 to 179 Fahrenheit, before adding the fragrance oil. That's the temperature that works best with my supplies. In general, most waxes and fragrance oils blend well at 80 degrees to 90 degrees, it's 176 to 194 Fahrenheit. This helps you get a strong, clean scent throw. According to my wax supplier, I should pour the wax into the jars at 55 degrees to 60 degrees, 131 to 140 Fahrenheit. Your wax might be different, so always check your supplier's instructions. After pouring, I wipe my tools with paper towels. It keeps everything clean and ready for the next batch. Then I make sure the wick is centered and leave the candle to set overnight. In the summer, sometimes the tops soften a little, but that's completely fine. The last step is trimming the wick to about 5 millimeters. It's a quarter of an inch. And that's it. Your candle is ready. Now that we've made our first candle, it's time to be patient and let it cure. But what does curing actually mean? Curing is simply the process of letting your candle sit so the wax and fragrance bind together and the candle hardens. If you're using natural waxes, curing is super important. You'll want to wait at least 1 to 2 weeks. And 2 weeks is highly recommended for the best results. On the other hand, if you're working with paraffin wax, you don't really need to wait that long. The curing time is usually just about 3 days, but it all depends on your fragrance oil too. Why is curing so important? If you test your candle too early, the wax will still be soft. That can make the wick burn hotter. You won't get an accurate idea of how your candle actually performs. Since we want to know exactly what our customers will experience when they burn the candle, Even months later, it's always best to wait those 2 weeks. Once your candle is cured, it's time to test it. Testing is the key to a safe and well-performing candle, and it's not as hard as it sounds. Here's how I do it. I'm trimming my wick to about 5 millimeters, a quarter of an inch, and burning my candle for 4 hours, and after that I'm letting it cool for at least 8 hours before the next session. Sometimes I just wait until the next day. And here's something important: I don't trim the wick between burn sessions. Why? Because about 95% of customers won't do it, and I want to see how the candle behaves in real life. During testing, don't worry if your candle doesn't reach a full melt pull to the edges in the first couples of burns. That's totally fine. It actually prevents your candle from burning too hot and too quickly. I won't go too deep into the full testing process here because I already have another video where I show the entire step-by-step testing. You can check it by clicking the link in the corner, or I'll also leave it in the description down below. And remember, the most important safety check is to make sure your candle jar never exceeds 80 degrees. It's 176 Fahrenheit. And don't get discouraged. Candle testing takes time and patience. You won't nail it in just one test, or even 5, or even 10. But with each test, you're getting closer to that perfect formula for a safe, beautiful, and great performing candle. Now let me share a few tips from my experience as a candle maker. I've been doing this for about a year, and here's something important I've learned. Using a higher percentage of fragrance oil doesn't always mean your candle will smell stronger. In fact, adding too much fragrance oil can actually hurt your candle's performance, especially if you go over what your wax can hold. That's why I always recommend starting with the minimum. For me, that's usually around 5%, and believe me, sometimes that works amazingly well, especially if the fragrance oil is high quality and naturally strong. Another tip: always label your testers. Write down the fragrance load you used and the date you made a candle. If a test turns out really well, but you didn't keep notes, it's going to be overwhelming trying to recreate it later or remember exactly what you did. Keeping labels will save you so much stress. And one more safety note: I personally would rather have a candle that tunnels a little at the beginning and catches up later, than a candle that burns too hot with a big flame. A candle that burns too hot can heat the jar too much, and that could create a fire hazard. So always aim for safe performance first. I think that's everything I wanted to share with you in this video. It was just a quick informative guide to help you get started with making your first candle and to understand the basics of how it all works. If you have any questions about topics I didn't cover, feel free to ask me in the comments. I'd love to help. And if you're in the first year of candle making, share some of your own tips in the comments too. That way other beginners can learn from your experience, and it will be really helpful for everyone. Don't forget to check out the video where I go into detail on how to properly do a candle burn test. I'll leave the link in the description for you. And thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful and inspiring, and I wish you the best of luck with making your own beautiful, successful candles. And if you'd like to see more about my candle business and get to know me better, you can check out my link tree in the description. You'll find all my social media there, so we can stay connected.